On Tuesday of this week, I confirmed that we have been in communication with the government of North Korea. Secretary Pompeo will be meeting with them and talking with them at the earliest possible date to try to implement the outcomes of the U.S. DPRK summit. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi. Good to see you. A couple announcements to start out with, actually several announcements, so get comfortable, as I say, when we have a lot to go over. First off, I'd like to wish all of you a happy International Yoga Day. Last year, I recall, we had forgotten it, and so where are our friends here who practice yoga?
Boyle is the
Boyle, yeah, okay, there, we've got one person in the back. Okay, well, a happy International Yoga Day, everyone. It is celebrated around the world to recognize yoga's many benefits to the mind and the body. The observance was launched by the United Nations in 2015 with U.S. support thanks to the initiative of Indian Prime Minister Modi. Today, we're also celebrating another significant achievement with our Indian friends. I'm pleased to announce today that the United States will hold its India 2+2 dialogue with the United States. It will be held here at the State Department on July the 6th. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis will host the Indian External Affairs Minister along with the Minister of Defense for meetings that will focus on strengthening the strategic and defense cooperation as the United States and India jointly address challenges in the Indo-Pacific region and also beyond. Next, I'd like to say this on behalf of the entire State Department. I'd like to express our sincere gratitude and best wishes to German Ambassador Peter Wittig, who marked his last official day yesterday as German Ambassador to the United States. Over the course of 9 years in which he served here in the United States, he played a critical role in deepening mutual understanding and strengthening relations between our two great countries. Wishing him the best of luck in his next posting with his family. Next, Matt, an issue I know that you're following closely. In Bahrain, I'd like to mention that we are following closely the case of Ali Salman, the former Secretary General of the dissolved Al-Wafaq opposition political party, who was under investigation for allegedly collaborating with Qatar against the government of Bahrain during the events of 2011. We welcome today's verdict acquitting Ali Salman along with his co-defendants. Today's acquittal removes a potential barrier to political reconciliation in Bahrain, and we urge Bahraini prosecutors not to pursue an appeal of the judge's ruling. We repeat our call on the government of Bahrain to release Ali Salman from prison and grant relief from his previous conviction. Next week,
Is that coming out as a written statement as well? Or
I'm not sure.
Can it?
Do you need it to? Do you need it to? Okay, we'll look into that for you. Easy enough. Next, I'd like to announce our Deputy Secretary's upcoming travels. Deputy Secretary John Sullivan will travel to the Netherlands, Denmark, Algeria, and Morocco. He will begin his trip in The Hague to lead the U.S. delegation to a special session on the Conference of the States Parties of the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. He will underscore U.S. determination to prevent and deter the spread and use of deadly chemical weapons, and also our commitment to ensuring that all responsible for the use of chemical weapons in Syria and elsewhere are held accountable. Next, he'll lead a delegation to Copenhagen to participate in Ukraine Reform Conference to reaffirm the U.S. support for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity in its internationally recognized borders, and also reiterate our conviction that the success of Ukraine depends on the implementation of serious structural reforms.
Can I move to North Korea? Can you tell us where we are almost 10 days after the summit? Last week, President Trump said that the follow-up negotiations will start this week, that will be led by Secretary Pompeo. Mm-hmm. So had there been some engagement with the North Koreans this week?
On Tuesday of this week, I confirmed that we have been in communication with the government of North Korea. Secretary Pompeo will be meeting with them and talking with them at the earliest possible date to try to implement the outcomes of the U.S. DPRK summit. We don't have any meetings or travel to announce at this time. As soon as we do, I promise I will let you know. I know you all have a lot of interest in that.
There are reports from the region that Secretary Pompeo might go there back in Pyongyang this weekend or next week? You don't have
I
any?
don't have any meetings or any travel for you to announce.
And President Trump today said that there were many progress on denuclearization made the last days. Do you have some steps made by the North Koreans?
This is the
decision taken?
Yeah. So North Korea had agreed to denuclearization. That is certainly a promising step. Other countries are agreeing to that and continue to endorse our policy and our priorities of denuclearization. It will be a lengthy process in terms of these conversations and the meetings that we will have with this government. I'm not going to be able to provide you with a TikTok of every step along the way. There's a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of work left to be done, and when I have something to announce, I'll certainly let you know.
What President Trump was referring to when he said there were many progress made in the last few days. I mean, if there are progress, you can tell us if there are some steps, decision taken.
I don't have anything to share with you on that. Okay?
Just on that, when you say that they've agreed to denuclearization, it doesn't seem that in the statement that came out of the summit that there was agreement on the actual definition of denuclearization and what that means. I mean, to the United States, it could mean something very different than it does to North Korea. So when you say that the North Koreans have agreed to denuclearization, how do you define what denuclearization?
The United States and North Korea affirmed and underscored to work toward complete denuclear, and I'm just reading from the document itself, to work toward the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That is our agreement. That is what we're working to do. Granted, we have a lot of work ahead of us. Our eyes are wide open as we go into this, but we'll keep pushing forward and keep pursuing it.
But I mean, according to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and other things, complete denuclearization to the North Koreans, as they've expressed in the past, is after all nuclear states are at zero themselves. So, I mean, obviously the United States doesn't think that it's going to wait for denuclearization of North Korea after the U.S. has a complete denuclearization of itself.
At least you've seen our policy. You know what our policy is. We're working hard toward that goal. Okay?
Just follow up.
Let me just go to Rich. Rich hasn't gotten anything.
Real quick, and on the same thing, when the president does say it's already started, and I know you don't want to give it a step-by-step, but is the relationship with North Korea at the point where there is any type of international presence there to verify whether that's already started?
I'm not going to get into who may or may not be on the ground there, but it's something that we're in communication with that government, and we're working hard toward this goal.
Can you explain?
Matt, let me get to some other people too. Abby, go right ahead.
Are there any meetings that are occurring right now or have occurred since then between the U.S. and North Korea?
I can
Are there
just
any
tell you we're in
discussions or working
communication. We're in
groups?
communication with the government. At what level? Elise, I'm not going to get into all of the details about who, what, where, when, why, how. What flowers, Matt likes to know what flowers are going on the table. I'm not going to be able to provide you with that information.
So you're not
but
going
when
to be
I
able to
have
help us with
something,
the who, what, where, why, and when, which is exactly the idea of what we do for a living, right? Is trying to say who, what.
but what
So
we're
you're saying
doing
we're
for a
going to be
living here
unhelpful.
is working toward a goal, and the goal is denuclearization and following through on the commitments that were made. And sometimes that can be difficult when, when we're distracted by all of the questions
Just a
going
quick
on.
follow.
So.
When you say that there are contacts with North Korea,
Yes.
does that mean there are just contacts, or there are contacts about the specific charge of setting up a negotiating
Elise,
process?
I'm not going to get into that,
So
okay?
there were contacts before the summit, and there have been contacts.
You can
through the
conclude
new-
whatever you want out of
so
that, but I can tell you
conclude
we are
that
in.
nothing has changed since the summit, because that there was contacts.
If that is the assumption you want to make, go right ahead.
Would you
Go
say
go
that-
right ahead if that's the assumption that you want to make.
Even if you
I'm
don't
not
wanna
going to
say-
get it. I'm not going to get into the details, but the reality is that we are we are in contact. We are in communication with that government. And by the way, let me just point out that we are a significant step ahead from where we were 6 months ago, 1 year ago. I mean,
So
think of
are
it.
those the contours of those conversations, or are those just like the typical, New York Channel type of discussions that have nothing to do with bilateral relations?
At least I'm not going to characterize those conversations or the communications, okay?
Would you just
Sorry.
say- would you say
Okay,
that-
and I'm going to have to go.
would
Let me
you
just
say
go to
that
Kylie
the
last, and then we got to go.
negotiations
Kylie hasn't asked anything yet.
Yeah, so still on North Korea,
Yeah.
there was a report in Reuters that there was an agreement to close the Sohae satellite launching ground, which is one of the sites that is apparently a vehicle for the ICBMs that can hit the United States. Can it be confirmed that they have taken steps to tear this down, and do we know if it's happened yet or if it will happen?
And appreciate the question. I mean, that is something at the State Department we can't answer at that point. I've certainly seen that report. We've seen that report. I would imagine there would be other government entities who would be involved in trying to clarify that and determine exactly what's taking place. But here at the State Department, we can't confirm that that's the case. I've got to go. Guys, I have a meeting in just a few minutes. I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks.